Hello everyone, welcome to this week's Crank This. I am Kyla, and today we are looking at a song that deserves everyone's attention. On Crank This, we tend to look at the songs because they deserve to be played loud, as they have a serious riff or hook or a chorus hits or something of that nature. Well, this song today does all of that, but also has a serious message attached to it. Some songs are written to entertain you, some are written to make you feel something, and some are written because silence is no longer acceptable. The song we will look at today is Untold Stories by Rock I Roll. This is a song and video built around the injustices happening across the world. War, poverty, displacement, hunger, environmental destruction, and the millions of ordinary people whose suffering is too often reduced to a headline, a statistic, or a few seconds of footage before the world moves on. But this video doesn't want you to move on. It wants you to look. It wants you to remember. And it wants you to listen.
Hear their whispers in the dead of night, faces carved in shadows fading from the light. The world keeps turning, looking the other way, while they are trapped in the ruins of yesterday. Oh, untold stories buried in the sand, ghosts of the hunger, shadows of the land. No voice rises above the roar of the guns, the forgotten daughters and the nameless sons. We hear your silence, we feel your pain. In a world that forgot, we scream your
From its opening moments, it's clear that this isn't a video using destruction merely because destruction looks dramatic. The devastation is the message. The ruined buildings, the refugee camps, the frightened children, the exhausted families, the wounded civilians, and the scorched landscapes are all used to focus attention on people who are usually spoken about from a distance. We hear casualty numbers. We hear how many people have been displaced. We hear how many homes have been destroyed. But numbers make suffering feel abstract. This video deliberately brings the focus back to the individual. A child standing among ruins. A parent trying to protect their family. Someone being carried through a devastated street. People waiting in makeshift shelters with no certainty about what tomorrow will bring. These are not simply background images supporting a song. They are the reason the song exists. Musically, Untold Stories gives the subject the weight it needs. The rock and metal foundation brings a sense of urgency and anger, but the track doesn't rely entirely on aggression. There is grief beneath it, there is frustration, and there is the feeling of a voice demanding that the suffering of others should not be treated as normal. The guitars provide much of the force, giving the song a heavy and determined backbone. But the more melodic passages allow the emotion to breathe. That balance is important. A song about injustice can't simply shout for several minutes and expect the listener to remain emotionally connected. The quieter and more reflective sections create space for the human cost of the images to settle in. Then, when the heavier sections return, the anger feels earned. The video also understands the difference between showing destruction and showing its consequences. A ruined city can be visually impressive, but it's the people inside that ruined city who make the image matter. We see the aftermath of violence rather than presenting conflict as something heroic or exciting. There are no glorious battlefield victories here, no triumphant soldiers standing over an enemy, no attempt to turn suffering into an action sequence. Instead, we see what's left when the fighting has moved on. Homes reduced to rubble, families forced into temporary camps, children growing up surrounded by fear, people searching through places that once contained their lives. That is where the video is strongest. It reminds us that injustice is not limited to the moment when violence occurs. It continues afterwards. It's the injury that can't be treated, the home that can't be returned to, the child who no longer feels safe, the parent who can't find enough food, the family waiting for help that may never arrive. The title, Untold Stories, becomes increasingly important as the video progresses. These stories aren't completely unknown. We see images like these every day. But seeing something is not the same as hearing the people within it. We are often shown suffering without being encouraged to think about the lives behind it. The cameras arrive after the disaster. They capture the ruins. They record the scale of the damage, and then they leave. But the people remain. Their lives continue long after the rest of the world has turned its attention elsewhere. The performance sequences are placed carefully within the video. The musicians don't appear on a brightly lit stage, separated from the subject of the song. They perform within the same dry, damaged, and almost lifeless environment. The cracked earth, dead trees, and empty horizons make the world itself appear exhausted. It gives the impression that both the landscape and the people living within it have been pushed beyond what they should ever have been expected to survive. The inclusion of multiple vocal and performance elements also helps the song feel larger than one person's private reaction. It becomes a collective voice, not simply one narrator describing what they have witnessed, but several voices drawing attention to the same injustice. The keyboard sections bring another layer to the track as well. They pull the music away from pure heaviness and allow more of the sorrow beneath the anger to emerge. Visually, the video moves between several connected forms of suffering: war, displacement, poverty, drought, environmental collapse, civilian casualties. That is an ambitious choice because it could easily have become unfocused. But the video connects these issues by showing how one injustice often leads directly into another. War destroys homes. Destroyed homes create displacement. Displacement increases poverty and vulnerability. Environmental collapse makes food and water more difficult to obtain. And those who already possess the least are usually the first to suffer and the last to receive help. These aren't isolated tragedies. They are part of a cycle. There is, of course, a danger when creating something this relentlessly bleak. When an audience is shown suffering repeatedly, they can begin to disconnect from it. The images become overwhelming and emotional self-protection takes over. But Untold Stories avoids that by moving between wide images of devastation and much smaller human moments. The wider shots establish the scale. The close-ups establish the cost. A destroyed city tells us that something terrible has happened. A frightened child tells us what that terrible event actually means. And perhaps the most honest choice the video makes is that it doesn't offer an easy solution. There is no hero arriving at the end, no single act that suddenly repairs everything. The song doesn't pretend that music alone can stop wars, rebuild cities, or feed displaced families. Instead, it asks something more immediate from the audience. Don't look away. Don't allow human suffering to become ordinary. Don't accept that some lives matter less because they are happening far away. And do not allow these stories to remain untold. So, should you crank this? Yes, absolutely. Not because the subject is comfortable, and not because human suffering should ever be treated as entertainment. You should crank it because music has always been one of the most powerful ways to force uncomfortable truths into the room. A song can reach people who would never read the report. A video can give a human face to a number on a screen. And art can sometimes make us stop long enough to feel something that the endless news cycle has trained us to ignore. Untold Stories uses its heaviness for a reason. It gives volume to people who are too often expected to suffer quietly. It doesn't ask us to enjoy what we are seeing. It asks us to acknowledge it, to remember it. And perhaps, after the final note fades, to care enough not to turn away. This is Untold Stories. It deserves to be seen. It deserves to be heard. And it deserves to be cranked. You will find the links to the creators' channel in the description below. Go check them out and give them some love. Please like and subscribe to keep up to date with the latest happenings in the space. It also helps us bring more creators to your attention. I am Kyla. This is Crank This from the Digital Forge. Be safe out there, and I will see you on the next one. Now go ahead and crank this!